unit. So we're going to start number 29 right now. As I said, I apologize. We only have the Hebrew at the moment. I hope to, in a month or so, have more time to make up more of the English units. So the Torah says, Zachor Yon Shabbat L'Kadsho. Now, the interesting thing about Zachor Yon Shabbat L'Kadsho, Zachor means what? How would you translate Zachor? I'm purposely not translating this automatically. How would you translate Zachor? First of all, I'm happy that you're thinking, because, right, you think that doesn't sound like a very complicated word. When you think about it a bit more, you realize there's certain complexity here, right? So what do you think?
I want to say more like commemorate, because it also has the word memory in it, but it's not, it seems like it's not the same as Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek in the past, but like kind of note what's happening now.
Right. Very good. So very good. So Yaakov, as usual, hit it right on the head. Zachor could be your remember, but does remember just mean, there are a bunch of things you have to remember. You have to remember that Hashem is Echad, although you have to mention that a few times a day. You have to remember that Amalek, right? You have to remember that what Hashem did to Miriam. You have a few things you need to remember. Is that it, or is the expectation that there's expectation that the memory will also be something of commemoration, active memory? So we see Chazal did think of it as an active memory in a few places. So the Chazal was very clear. Let's see this medrash. This medrash has three explanations. Zachor v'shamor, Zachor milefanav v'shamor milacharav. So it's interesting, right? It says Zachor Yom Shabbat in Shmot, and in Dvarim it says Shamot Yom Shabbat. And then normally we think about it as Shamor is guarding Shabbat, meaning not going against the Avot Melacha, right? So we usually think of Shamor, and Zachor is the more positive aspects, right? The positive things you should be doing. But the Medrash here, at least the Tanakama of the Medrash, right? I guess that would be Rabbi Ishmael, I guess, says, Zachor milefanav v'shamor milacharav. Mikan amor mosefin michor al kodesh. Mashal lezev shu tored milefanav v'milacharav. Right? We talked about Unit 27. We talked about Tosefet Shabbat. It says Zachor is be mindful that Shabbat is coming, and Shamor is beware that Shabbat is not necessarily over. Right? Right, be mindful Shabbat is coming, and then you say, oh, wait, it's already 3 o'clock, right? In an hour and a half, it's going to be Shkia. I need to be aware of this already now. And then, comes 4 o'clock, comes 4:15, you say, okay, I have to be mindful of Shabbat coming. So I'll stop now. Stop doing melacha now, because otherwise I'll forget to be mindful of it, right? And then Shabbat ends, you say, well, I need to make sure that Shabbat really is fully over, right? I think that's the way he reads Zachor v'shamor, which I find very interesting. Now, Elazar ben Chanai ben Chizkiah ben Chanai ben Garon, quite a yichus, Omer, Zachor Yom Shabbat lekadsho, te'zocho me'echad b'Shabbat, she'im yitmaneh lecha mana yafa te'metakno l'shem Shabbat. Right, which reminds us all of, does this remind us of? See, Rabbi Yoel answered, but I don't know what he said. What's your Rabbi Yoel?
Yosef Mokir Shabbat.
Yosef Mokir Shabbat.
Or Beit Shammai.
Or Beit Shammai or Shammai?
Oh, sorry, Shammai.
Shammai, right?
That was too easy.
Right. So I actually brought Shammai over here. So Shammai thing is more famous from the Gemara, right? About Zeb, but here the same idea over here. Shammai Zaken Omer Zochra in the Mechilta. Shammai Zaken Omer Zochra Shelo Tavo Shomra Mishetavo, right? Which is the more classic way we think about Zachor and Shamor, right? Shamor is what you do on Shabbat, Zachor is what you do until Shabbat, which makes sense, because if you have to be mindful, you have to be mindful of Shabbat during the week, and then on Shabbat, you have to keep Shabbat. It's Shabbat already. There's no mindfulness now. You just have to keep it, right? I mean, it's the way he thinks about it. He seems to think about it. And Shammai Zaken, who actually did this, Shelo zichron Shabbat zaz mitoch piv. לקח חפץ טוב, אמר זה לשבת. כלי חדש, אומר זה לשבת. And the other medrash that you probably, right, and each time, right, there's another medrash that says each time he would improve it, right, take the better one for that. So, right, so Shammai Hazaken seems to go, I think, in the same direction as Elazar ben Chananya, who says you need to be thinking of Shabbat all the time. So the mindfulness of Shabbat, according to the Rabbi Shmuel, the mindfulness of Shabbat is Tosefet Shabbat, is being aware Shabbat is coming, you have to be careful, Shabbat is coming, you have to be careful. As opposed to Elazar ben Chananya and Shammai Zaken say Shabbat is coming the whole week. The whole week Shabbat is coming. Shabbat is coming, so you have to prepare. What I have to prepare, not the negative aspect of Shabbat is like a scary wolf. You have to be aware of, right? That you'll get you'll be in trouble if you're not ready. But you have to be aware of Shabbat all the time and think about the Oneg Shabbat and Kavod Shabbat, right? How am I going to make Shabbat special? And that's something you have to think about all the time. When?
I was just going to ask, does that mean that this is not, that this opinion is rejected because it's Shammai?
Not necessarily, because that's usually we reject machloket Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. Shammai not necessarily as much.
There's a machloket against Hillel on this point, though.
Right, Hillel and Shammai. I don't remember if we say the same. What the Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. I don't remember if we say the same thing about Hillel and Shammai themselves. I don't remember. You could be right. I just don't remember. Oh. Now, Rabbi Yitzchak says something very interesting. Lo teheh moneh kederech she'achrim monin, ela teheh moneh l'shem Shabbat. Meaning, right, the Goyim say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and those are what? All names of ancient Greek gods or something, right? You give the days named by whoever or whatever, right? We say the first day, the second day, the third day, what? What first day? What's right? Yom Rishon, Yom Shani, Yom Shlishi. First and second day of what? Right? Right. This morning we said Yom Revi'i b'Shabbat, right? Meaning the fourth day out of counting towards Shabbat. Right, now why is that important? The Ramban says, על דרך הפשט אמרו שהיא מצווה שנזכור תמיד בכל יום את השבת, שלא נשכחהו ולא יתחלף לנו בשאר הימים. כי בזוכרנו אותו תמיד נזכור מעשה בראשית בכל עת. So when I say the first day of what? Of Briat Shamayim V'aretz, which led to Shabbat, right? ונודה בכל עת שיש לעולם בורא, והוא ציווה אותנו באות הזה, כמו שאמר, כי אותי ביני וביניכם, וזה עיקר הגדול באמונת האל. That the brit, when you say the brit, right, oti beini uvein bnei Israel, why is Shabbat an ot beini uvein bnei Israel? What is the ot? The ot is that we are the ones who have to go out and remind the world that Hashem created the world. How do we do that? By every single week stopping and saying, just like Hashem created the world and then stopped, we're stopping too. And we don't do that only on Shabbat when we stop, we do it every day. Because today is the fourth day since Shabbat, and the fourth day leading up to the seventh. Right? We don't call it Wednesday, which is a random name, right? It always bothered me that Tuesday is the third day of the week, right? It should be two, it should be the second, right? They don't even bother trying to align them, right? But in our world, right, Yom Revi'i b'Shabbat. Right, we're counting up towards Shabbat, and we're also counting since Shabbat. Right, the way Shabbat is the center of everything, and we recount Maaseh Bereshit over and over and over again. And that's why this is something that's something that it's something that's with us all the time. Right, something that's present in our lives constantly. Beseder. The Yalkut Shimoni points out what I said before. I don't know what it's here, but זכור תהיה שבת לקדשו, יכול בלבך כשהוא אומר שמור את יום השבת, הרי שמירת הלב אמורה. היינו אומר זכור את יום, אלא להיות שונה בפיך, which is wonderful. Why? What do I mean? But what do I find wonderful here? Shamor is a negative mitzvah, right? Who here has been in the army and has done shmirot? I think a bunch of you, right? What are you allowed to do on shmirah? Nothing, right? Not to do anything on shmirah. So what are you doing? Answer is you're guarding. What does guarding mean? Nothing. It means guarding, right? Paying attention. That's all you do. You're being mindful. You're paying attention. That's all shmirah means. So on Shabbat too, all you're doing is abstaining from doing things that break Shabbat. That's all you're doing. So that's a negative thing. You're not doing anything active. So when we talk about being mindful of Shabbat, shamor is being mindful. Okay, so what does zachor mean? If shamor is being mindful, which is all you do when you're guarding something, right? So what does zachor mean? It can't be being mindful, even though that's what we probably think about, right? I asked at the beginning, what is zachor? It's remembering, commemorating, right? But shamor is being mindful because that's what guarding something means. So zachor must be something active. It must mean something active. And here he talks about not something you do during the week, but zachor lekadsho. Here I think we're connecting zachor with lekadsho. You have to do something to mekadesh Shabbat. How do you add kedusha to the Shabbat? He says liot shoneh beficha, to do something. For argument, just for the moment, next week Bezrat Hashem will go deeper into this point. But when we say Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Shabbat, we're keeping this mitzvah of Zachor Shabbat Lekadsho. Your Zachor is an active thing of saying the bracha of Mekadesh Shabbat. Now again, you're going to say that bracha is a late addition. It wasn't originally part of the Torah, right? But because we need to define somehow, and we're going to go deeper into this next time, we just somehow define exactly what it means to Zucher Shabbat lekadsho. So Anshe Knesset Gedolah gave us a bracha. It's a convenient way of doing it. But the point is that it has to be something active that you do. Zachor Shabbat lekadsho. It's something active you do on Shabbat, which leads us to the Ramban and to Rav Lichtenstein. The Ramban says the first point the Ramban said was about counting the days of the week and the mindfulness you have during the week of Birat Shamayim V'Aretz. The Ramban here says, "L'Rabotenu od bo midrash b'milat lekadsho shenekadsheu bezikaron kinyan v'kidashtem et shnat 50 shana shu ta'un kiddush beit din lomar be'ovel mekudash mekudash afkan tziva shenizkor din Shabbat b'kadshenu oto." Now it's interesting because, right, we normally at a wedding we say mekudash mekudash, but that's not what creates the kiddushin, right? We say mekudesh mekudesh, it's to say yes, this worked and to add to the excitement, etc. At weddings, but that's not what creates the kiddushin, right? What creates the kiddushin was the mais kinyan, right? The ring or whatever, right? That's what creates the kiddushin. But the yovel, what creates the kedusha of the yovel is the Beit Din standing and saying mekudash mekudash. That's what creates the kedusha. Now this comparison is an interesting one. Because do we create the kedusha of Shabbos? So our assumption all along was, when we learned Tosefet Shabbat, our assumption was that there's a stable thing. There's the how would I say this? The mekuba thing, right? The thing that's the kedusha that's set into Shabbat. And what I could do is that I could extend that kedusha a couple of hours before Shabbat, a couple of hours after Shabbat, right? But the kedusha is set at a specific time, just like, the opposite of what we say about Chagim, right? The bracha we say on Chagim is Nekadesh Yisrael v'azmanim, Nekadesh Yisrael v'yom zikaron. Why do we say it like that? The Gemara explains, Hashem gave us kedusha, and we can bestow that kedusha to Rosh Chodesh, which creates the time at which the kedusha it will be on Yantiv or whatever, right? On Rosh Chodesh, on Yantiv. Right? We actually create that kedusha. On Shabbos, it's not like that. Since the world has been created, every seventh day was already Shabbat. And we're only appreciating an existing kedusha. But the Ramban here compares the Yovel and Shabbos. The Yovel where we create the kedusha, and Shabbos where I thought that it's a kedusha that's already set into the Shabbat. I could extend it, but it's already there on its own, no? So Rav Lichtenstein, he has a whole long article about this. he has a few other examples, like Kedushat Bechor, right? There's a mitzvah to Mekadesh the Bechor, even though the Bechor will be Kadosh anyway, right? Bunch of examples like that. I couldn't go into them right now, but I'll just read this Rav Lichtenstein. מעצם ההשוואה שעורך הרמב"ן בין השבת ליובל, עולה כי הקידוש מקדש את השבת. אין הקידוש אך ורק אמירת דברי שבח ותיאור של הקדושה הקיימת זה מכבר, אלא הקידוש כשמו כן הוא, מעשה של יצירה, אשר על ידו השבת מתקדשת והולכת. אף על פי שהשבת קביעה וקיימה מלמעלה, מכל מקום בני אדם שוכני חומר מקדשים אותה מלמטה, באמצעות הקידוש, מוסיפים קדושה על קדושתה. אף על גבי קדושה קיימת ניתן וצריך להטביע קדושה נוספת מגוון אחר, אף אם אותה קדושה קמאית באה מלמעלה. Meaning, we normally think, as I said before, we normally think of Yontiv as Kadosh Baruch Hu has the Kedusha of Yontiv up there, and we need to draw it down into the world by creating Kedusha of Rosh Chodesh. By announcing Rosh Chodesh, we create the Jewish calendar, and then the Kedusha that appears on Tetvav Nisan, Yudalad Nisan, right? Happens because we decided that it's Nisan, right? That's the way we usually think about Yontiv as opposed to Shabbat. It's just the seventh day. The Kedusha is there. It's waiting for us to arrive at Shabbat. Villandin says this is true, but we still have a mitzvah, and the mitzvah of Zechor Shabbat the Kaddish, the mitzvah of the Kiddush aspect of Zechor Yom Shabbat the Kaddish, you really are adding Kedusha to the Shabbos. You really are adding sanctity to the Shabbos by doing whatever Kedusha you're doing. Whatever Kiddush you do, right, you make Kiddush. What does that mean? You make Kiddush, right? What does that mean? So normally, I think we think about it as we're appreciating, right? We're reacting to a Kedusha that, right, we met a Kedusha of Shabbat, and we're reacting to that by making Kiddush. But what it seems from the Ramban, as Rav Lichtenstein here writes, right, is that we're actually sanctifying Shabbat. We're adding Nechon. Shabbat has its own sanctity, has its own Kedusha. But what we do is we extend that Kedusha not only in terms of time as we send to Shabbat, we add to that Kedusha by making our Kiddush.